That's lovely. We're going to need a slightly warmer welcome when I'm talking about our authors later on. Can we practice the warmer welcome for the authors later on? Can we do a whole a few whoops if you're happy with that? That's okay. Good morning. Welcome to the KPMG Children's Books Ireland Awards 2023 shortlist announcement. I'm Rick O'Shea, and on behalf of Children's Books Ireland, I'm delighted to be announcing this year's shortlist here at the Crescent Arts Centre in Belfast. A warm welcome to the representatives from KPMG, the title sponsor of the awards, and a warm welcome to Damien Smith of the Arts Council of Northern Ireland, who are a key supporter of the awards annually. Welcome to the shortlisted authors as well, and illustrators, some of whom have joined us here this morning. Some of us are joining online as well. Hello and good morning to you wherever you are, and to our young readers and junior jurors who are across the country. A special enormous welcome, wait, this is your bit, for the junior jurors from Aquinas Diocesan Grammar School, Victoria College, St Paul's Primary School and Fort Hill Integrated College and Primary Schools, joining us in the Crescent Arts Centre today. Now, our intention today had been to have an Irish Sign Language interpreter, but due to circumstances beyond our control, that can't happen today. It will happen on the video at a later date, and the ceremony will be ISL interpreted on the day of the final. 2023 marks 33 years of the awards and the fourth year of the Children's Books Ireland partnership with KPMG. For those who don't know, the KPMG Children's Books Ireland Awards are the only awards in Ireland that celebrate books created by Irish children's and young people's authors and illustrators and those living on the island of Ireland. The KPMG Children's Books Ireland Awards Junior Juries programme is a unique activity for schools, libraries and book clubs designed to encourage children and young people to read widely and to engage with reading in an innovative and exciting way. Young readers shadow the adult judges of the Book Awards panel in reading, discussing and assessing the shortlisted books each year. These junior juries are keenly waiting to hear which books have been shortlisted for this year's awards. So let's get on with the show. Before we get you to that shortlisting, I'd like to welcome to the podium the partner in charge of KPMG Belfast, Johnny Hanna.
Thanks, Rick, and good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here this morning at the Crescent Arts Centre in this wonderful theatre room. The Children's Books Ireland Awards are so important. They help give prominence to the best Irish writing and illustration and to the incredibly talented people behind that work. In doing so, the awards help ensure a vibrant and sustainable sector, success for the creators and a chance for the rest of us, hopefully, to enjoy more of their work in the future. Of utmost importance, they help promote literacy amongst our young people, a vital attribute in every modern society and one which cements a positive, enriching and a prosperous future. Everyone in the room today, I think, recognises that reading has the power to change lives. And it's something that we're really passionate about in KPMG at all levels, from our graduate trainees, our interns, up to our partners and directors. We see firsthand how improving literacy can open doors of opportunity and allow young people to reach their full potential. A quick look through the work of the names shortlisted this year proves the level of talent among our island writers and artists is in really good health. We're taken on a wonderful journey on everything from the world of Cinderella, Osceolaga, to the mythical world of ancient Ireland, a look into the importance of friendship and a nod to the complex world of adulthood for the older readers. I know, as always, it's been a really difficult job for the judges to narrow the field down to just 10 titles, but I think they've done a superb job. So congratulations and the best of luck to all of those who've made this year's shortlist. Thank you very much.
Can we get a slight drum roll with your feet, please? Can we do the whole drum roll thing? Thank you. Good. We're done. We don't want to set off the fire alarm. We're done. Now, the moment we have been waiting for, I am delighted to reveal the 10 books that are shortlisted for the KPMG Children's Books Ireland Awards for 2023. Our first book is Girls Who Slay Monsters, Daring Tales of Ireland's Forgotten Goddesses, written by Ellen Ryan and illustrated by Shona Shirley MacDonald and published by HarperCollins Ireland. This is where you clap. Very good. This outstanding book brings oft-forgotten goddesses and heroes of Irish mythology out of the depths of an ancient past and into the reader's present. Ryan's wonderfully rich and well-researched text and MacDonald's sophisticated palette combine beautifully to create an innovative book that celebrates storytelling, curiosities, and female power. Firmly anchored in the landscape of this island, the book reminds us that these tales are forever etched into our hills and the valleys and the lakes and beaches. Our mythic past is present in the everyday. Our second book is Run for Your Life by Jane Mitchell, published by Little Island Books. This compelling novel follows the story of Azari, who ends up living in one of Ireland's inhumane direct provision centres when she and her mother are forced to flee their own country. For Azari, running, a passion she brings with her from home, provides her with a sense of power, confidence and happiness as she navigates the difficulties of a new life in Ireland. Respectfully written with wonderfully vivid and complex characters, Mitchell's brilliant narrative is one of freedom and constraint, secrets and lies, hope and heartache. The Boy Who Lost His Spark, written by Maggie O'Farrell and illustrated by Daniela Jaglienka-Terezzini, published by Walker Books. This remarkable and moving story of Jem as he tries to adapt to his new life in the countryside is a refreshingly quiet tale about the necessity of having a little bit of magic in life. Unhappy with his lot, Jem begins to see his world differently when a mischievous little creature called Anuka makes his presence known. The calmness of the tale reminds readers that they are in the hands of assured and expert storytellers. Writer and illustrator have created a special narrative that readers will want to revisit time and time again. The Book of Secrets by Alex Dunn, published by the O'Brien Press. This fast-paced story, inspired by Irish myth and folklore, brilliantly intertwines the real and the magical. 11-year-old Kat Donnelly has the sight, like others in her family before her, and so is particularly open to all things supernatural. Set around Halloween, when the trooping fairies descend on the small town of Clonbridge, this is an exciting adventure with just the right level of creepiness. Dark, but not too dark. There's a real urgency to the writing, sweeping readers along through an original and imaginative tale of magic in contemporary Ireland. The Lost Girl King by Catherine Doyle, published by Bloomsbury Children's Books. This thrilling adventure story reinvents the world of Tír na nÓg and brings it to a new generation of young readers. When Amy and Liam head west for the summer to stay with their grandmother, a literature professor, their whole world begins to open up. They soon discover a waterfall that acts as an entrance to Tír na nÓg, the land of eternal youth. But something in this magical world has gone very wrong. In Amy and Liam, Doyle constructs such credible and marvellous characters who begin to realise the power and potential they hold within. The Wilderness by Steve McCarthy, published by Walker Books. This fun and playful book follows the story of the Vaslienko family as they head out to the brave wilds and search for adventure. Well, all members of the family except young October, who prefers to find his adventures in the safety of books. Until one day he discovers that maybe the wilderness isn't as monstrous as he thought. This original tale with the importance of dealing with your feelings and shows the transformative potential of a different point of view. Be Wild Little One, written by Olivia Hope and illustrated by Daniel Egneas, published by Bloomsbury Children's Books. This is a heartwarming and inspiring call to the wild, to be brave, to go out and meet the world. Expertly written and beautifully illustrated, this inclusive book brings the reader on a journey into jungles, across skies, into deep blue seas, along snow-capped mountains, up to the rooftops and through stormy skies. This enchanting picture book demonstrates how so much can be said with just a few words and is a wonderful reminder of the life-affirming world that surrounds us. On Slipper Glynna, written by Fergus McLaughlin and illustrated by Paddy Donnelly, published by Futa Fata. A refreshing take on the story of Cinderella, this Irish language retelling brings new life to an old classic. Fantastic pictures and playful rhyming text work together brilliantly to tell the tale of Luthrin Bucht, tormented by her sisters Smuishin, agus Trishin, as well as by her lasvóhar Camilla, until the prince arrives with the titular glass slipper, transforming Luthrin's fate. Full of humour and wit, this is a book that readers will want to return to again and again. One and Everything by Sam Winston, published by Walker Books. The stunning and thought-provoking book can be appreciated on multiple levels as it brings the reader on a round-the-world journey through the importance of stories and storytelling, a meditation on language and script, on how we communicate, and on the perils of thinking that one single story is the most important story of all. This is an original and unusual book that, through text and illustration, celebrates the power of stories and the excitement they bring to our existence. And finally, Truth Be Told by Sue Diven, published by Macmillan Children's Books. Set in contemporary Northern Ireland, Truth Be Told is a beautifully written young adult novel full of distinctive voices. Tara and Faith are from different backgrounds and religious denominations, but when they meet, they realise that they have a lot in common. They look just like each other. As they try to figure out who they really are, they must delve deep into the past of their families and communities, uncovering secrets that some would prefer remain hidden. Let's get a huge round of applause for all 10 shortlistees today. And also, you guys are really good at that. If anybody ever needs professional audiences, you guys are the ones to go to. Well done, fair play. I'm now going to welcome one of our shortlisted authors to the stage to have a chat. Can you welcome Sue Diven? Talk amongst yourselves. This is important work. It's going to take a second. Before I talk to Sue, let me tell you a little bit about her first. She is Derry-based, but originally from Armagh, so she can't quite classify herself as a Derry girl, but with a master's in peace and conflict studies and a day job, that's in quotation marks, in community relations and peace building for over 15 years. Sue's writing touches on diversity and reconciliation in today's Northern Ireland. Truth Be Told is her second YA novel for Macmillan, following her debut, Guard Your Heart. And Sue and I are going to have a short chat and then a reading from the book, and then you guys get to ask her some questions. So start filing them away, start thinking about what you might potentially want to ask her. Sue.
Hello.
How does it feel to be shortlisted?
It's absolutely fantastic. I'm delighted the event's in Northern Ireland as well, and what a list of books that are up there. Fantastic.
Tell me a little bit about, I'll scroll all the way back to the very beginning, about when you started writing in the first place. How did that happen? Why did that happen? And when?
It happened in about 2016. So yeah, my journey into writing was quite random. I always loved being creative when I was at school, when I was the age of some of the audience here. And I probably wrote poetry really badly when I was a teenager, all that angst, you know. And then I kind of did singer-songwriting stuff, but I never actually wrote. I didn't study English literature at university or anything. And it was actually through life circumstances. I was a single parent, and I was stuck in the house in the evenings once my wee kid then was in bed. And after a couple of years of watching the telly, I got really bored and I switched it off and I started to write, and it took me on this journey.
Tell me there's some evidence of that singer-songwriter history out there somewhere.
There probably is. I'll try and deny it.
If people were to dig, they might find something. Who knows? Tell me, you obviously have quite a demanding job as well, which you continue doing as well as being a writer. Mm-hmm. Writing being a full-time job in and of itself. So how do you work those two things around each other in terms of every author does it differently? How do you do yours?
Probably really badly is the answer. About a year ago, once the debut had been published, I did go to 4 days a week in my day job, and that works really well because it gives me Fridays or a long weekend to try and be a bit more creative. But I think like anybody who's trying to juggle a number of jobs and being a mammy and all the stuff that goes with that, it can be really complicated. So my writing goes in like fits and bursts of things, you know.
So you don't have a routine. You don't have, you know, every morning at 6 a.m. you crack of dawn and you've got to do that, or you do it late at night.
I'm a single parent with a 16-year-old slightly autistic son, so routine just ain't happening. You know,
Not a thing. Okay.
it's usually I'll block a bit of time to try and, you know, really go for something for a block of time, and then it's just out and walks with an iPhone and randomly putting things in notes, little things that will start the writing or something like that, just whenever I have a moment.
Your job and your writing, there's kind of, you know, if they were a Venn diagram, there is a little kind of space in the middle where the two of them overlap with each other. So how does what you do inform your writing itself?
Well, there's like a saying that a lot of writers would know, which is write what you know. And I think that applies to no matter what age you are if you're writing. If there's something that you know more about than everybody else that's sitting in the room, that's a good thing for you to be writing about. And it doesn't matter whether that's, you know, how to jump the high jump, or whether it's how to play classical flute, or you just happen to know what it's like in your school canteen at lunchtime. And, you know, you write the thing that you know. So for me, although I'm from Armagh, I lived in Derry 20 years, and my first book was entirely set there. But also both my books are set in the world of Northern Ireland today. And I very much want to write what it's like to be living in the legacy of the Troubles. There's a lot of really brilliant writers from Northern Ireland who write about the Troubles, but I sort of felt, well, today's generation, you know, what if peace is harder than war, or at least more complicated, or what are the issues for today's teenagers? So I milk what I see around me, and what I know, and what I do in the day job is sort of working with communities to try and build bridges across people from different diverse identities in our society.
So maybe for some potential writers, either in the audience today or maybe who are watching online, I'd like you to explain the length of time that is involved in a book like this. So let's just take this book, for instance.
Yeah.
Where do you start writing this, and then what's the length of process until you get to a point where, you know, it turns up in a box and you have it in your hand?
Well, for different writers, that will vary. You know, I was chatting with Olivia at the start, and, you know, the whole process can be years and years and years. But to write a first draft of a novel, if you're like me and not working at it full time, I would say it takes a year to 18 months to have what I would call a first draft, which is like you've splurged it onto the page. Then I would take it through a lot of edits myself, which is where I really kind of go over it and rework every line, every paragraph, make sure I, you know, I've tweaked it the way I want. And then it's usually about a year in the publishing process as well. I mean, I don't have heaps of experience. I've only done 2 books, so, but that's been my experience of it. And this one was written predominantly during lockdown and the pandemic, so it was like a whole different world as well that we were living in at the time.
And maybe, again, take one step back from that. Initially, when you were writing the first book, how did you get published? How did you go from, I'm going to attempt to write something, I'm going to go through that whole process, to then a publisher saying, that's going to happen and we're putting out your book?
For me, it was really naive at the start, and I'm always delighted it was that naive, because I just thought, you know what, I've got an idea for a story, let's have a go at this. And about 18 months later, thought, I actually have a book here. I didn't even know then it was called a first draft, but I had a book, and I thought, okay, I think there's something in this, but there's a process. I need to learn and improve this because it's not quite there. So after the first 18 months, I spent a year taking myself out to venues like this where there was literary festivals on, or going to writing courses. There's a load of them online now. You know, and just trying to hone my craft and work out how to be a better writer, and that took some work. And then, as you probably know yourself, it was through a thing called the Irish Novel Fair. So if anybody has seen like Dragon's Den on TV, or knows like the concept of like speed dating or something like that, merge those ideas and you have the Irish Novel Fair competition, where you submit your work to a competition. And if you get through to the final, you're in a room with about 15 agents and publishers in the one day, and you get 15 minutes with each of them to go, please take my book, please, it's really good, please just take it. And if you're lucky, one of them goes, yeah, I'll take it. And then if you're lucky, you might get a publishing deal off the back of that. So that's the process that I went through.
That's terrible. It's an awful, awful thing to have to go through.
Well, it was fun too. I mean, you got to enjoy the journey, you know.
I know enjoying is probably not one of the words I would use if I was ever to find myself in that situation. You're going to read a little something from the new book, the shortlisted book. What are you going to do?
So I'm going to read you a section from Truth Be Told. I'm going to slightly edit this for language, just from the age of people. And this is a teen book. So the concept of this book, just so you get the idea of it, on the front you have Tara and Faith, who are two 16-year-olds. Tara is like a dairy girl, and Faith is from rural Armagh, countryside Armagh. And like you said, sort of in the introduction, they've never met before, but they meet on a youth, sort of teenage residential that they've gone away with, a cross-community thing with their youth clubs. And they're shocked to discover that they look virtually identical, which breeds a lot of questions. So maybe I'll just read it from here rather than the lectern, if that works. So this is the scene told in Tara's voice, the dairy girl, of where they meet for the first time. Another hour trundling along with the head torture of younger teens giving lilty to 57 billion green bottles, and we pull into some outdoor pursuits place with wee cabins and boats stacked outside and trailers, middle of nowhere, mountains, and somewhere close, the whisper of waves. Everyone's all, I hate this place, there's no 4G, flip, is there even Wi-Fi? There's a race for the dorms, but the leaders are a step ahead. The Protestant crew aren't here yet, but our lads are siphoned away from the girls, and they've names listed on the doors. They're force mixing us. It's about trying to make new friends, says Emer, but no boys in the girls' dorms and no girls sneaking in with the boys. When I count yous on the bus home, I want the same number I came with, no less, and definitely no more. I bag a top bunk. Lena reads the list off the door. The 4 names we don't know are them. Bethany, Hannah, Grace, Faith. They sound way holy. I'm lamenting my sleeping bag, bright orange with flowers like Nan salvaged it from the 1960s, and Lena and the others are touching up eyeliner when we hear the second bus trundle across the cattle grid. We jam our noses against the dorm window, our breath mist in the glass. Teenagers in jeans, hoodies and tracky bottoms mill about waiting for bags. They look kind of like us, says Lena. Expecting Martians, were ye? I say. She kicks me in the ankle and I lean down to rub it. OMG, she spells out the letters slow and low, and I squish further along to look, knowing it means serious eye candy. Except I'm wrong. Way wrong. It takes a moment to really sink in. A weird out-of-body feeling, like holy mother of the air is sucked from my lungs, and now my friends are staring at me and back to the window like ping-pong, and I can't breathe, tranced out watching a girl step off the bus, and she looks just like me. The same wavy black hair, same fair skin, same nose, cheekbones, stance, everything. Exact same as me, only airbrushed posh instead of goth. If individual's all I've got, now I'm nothing. The burning floods from my stomach, rising to my ears, anger, hot and frightened. Talking of looking like us, says Lena. Shut it, I say, slapping my hand flat on the wall. Like flip's sake, seriously? I know she's a prod, but you have to be related. She's your clone, Tara. You sure your mum didn't have twins split at birth? Your one there does makeup way better, though. I shove Lena. Her eyes go wide as she lands on a bunk. Something is so wrong, and my head can't get it. Just how is she something to me? Banter and footsteps sound down the corridor, coming towards our dorm, and then she's there, right there, flaunting it. Hi, I'm Faith, she says. Then, as she sees me, she drops her bag, puts her hand to her mouth, takes a step back. 3 other girls jostle in through the door frame, and then the whole room goes eerily still. as they freeze, I lunge. I don't even realize I'm doing it until thwack, I punch her in the chest, and she staggers as I barge past, running, fleeing up the corridor. I hear Emer shouting, "Tara, stop!" But I don't care.
If any of you are ever going to become authors, can I suggest when you're going to read from your book, you do that, because that's the reading that makes you want to read the rest of the book. It's a really good way of doing it.
I'm glad it worked. That's brilliant.
It was great. Okay, so this is the question and answer bit. Who's got a question for Sue? Oh, I love
Brilliant.
hands up
Hands up
immediately.
already. Love it.
And you're in charge because you were like half a second. Thank you.
Okay, so if you're got some advice to really young people, like really young readers who they want to read something and they're not sure what on earth to read, and they look up all the authors and they're like, I don't know any of these. What do I read? Any advice?
Good question.
It's a really good question, and I'm delighted that the question is partly, in a biased way, to read authors that you don't know, because there's a lot of authors out there, particularly in the world of children's and teens books, who are like the famous ones that, you know, everybody and all the parents just go straight to those books. So if you're picking a reader that you don't know, I think that's really, really good. Some good advice would be to go to your library. If you have a school library, brilliant, go there and ask the librarian. If you have a library where you live, go there. Or failing that, go to an independent bookshop. Like there's a couple within 5 minutes of here, and just ask the people working in the bookshop, say, this is the kind of books I like, what do you recommend? And see what they produce. Also look at shortlist for competitions like this, because usually if there are books on a shortlist or a long list, then they'll be pretty good books. So go for that. Good question.
I have a slightly different answer. I know you weren't asking the question to me, but it's a really good
That's
one.
all right.
I used to drive my parents batty when I was a kid, because I would just go, bring me to a bookshop, and then I would pick stuff, I'm terrible, based on covers. So I would just go in and find a cover I really liked, and then read the back and go, yeah, that's fine, that one's for me. So either find covers or just wander through bookshops, pick up stuff and read the back of it, and you never know. Browsing's great.
Definitely.
Something that's hard to do online, but much easier
And if
to
you
do
find
in
a good
bookshops.
book, recommend it to your friends as well, or share them.
Also all good. Okay, where's our next question? Up here at the back. Hello.
What would you do if you had to like continue on a story, or just put like just one out there, or just a different like series on and on?
So one of my books I was asked to write further on. Well, interesting question. So with this book, randomly, there is at least one short story out there in the ether and the internet that is a connected story to this, where I was just experimenting with characters. So some writers will do that. The same applies to the first novel I wrote, Guard Your Heart. There's a couple of short stories out there on the internet and stuff. If I had to follow on, a lot of people asked me from my first book if I was going to do like a series from that, and I thought about taking one of the key characters and almost writing a trilogy of his different siblings, the three siblings that were in that. But in the end, I decided, nah, I wanted to write something different. So I wrote this one.
Do you find it hard to let go of characters you love?
I think as an author, you're very invested in your characters. You kind of almost have to let them kind of live in your head for a long time. So yeah, letting them go and moving on to something else, yeah, it's a bit of a process in that, but you got to kind of let them do their thing too.
Okay, who's
Good
next?
question.
Loads of hands. Don't worry, keep putting hands up. We're all good. Hello.
Who or what inspired you to be an author?
Okay, so I did have a really good English teacher when I was at secondary school, and that was probably really good. That I liked English language. I wasn't hugely into English literature, which is a really controversial thing to say as a writer, but what I loved was the actual reading of books as opposed to the kind of dissecting them and saying what I thought about them. So I always loved reading, and my mum used to take me to the library regularly when I was a kid, and we borrowed books all the time. So I think those are probably two big influences, yeah.
Okay. Next hand. Hi.
Where, where do you get your ideas for stories?
Many of my ideas come from the real world, particularly in a novel. My first book was set in 2016, and I really looked at what were the big things happening in Northern Ireland in 2016. And at that time, it was 100 years on. It was a thing called a decade of centenaries, and it was 100 years on from some big history stuff in the island of Ireland that had been quite contentious. But I wanted to look at, so what was the story 100 years on from that for the teenagers today? And with this book, it was the same kind of thing, only this is set in 2019. So I was looking at what were the big issues in Northern Ireland in 2019, and some of them make their way into the book.
Okay. Where are we? Don't worry, keep worrying. I can see your hand is there. We see you. Don't worry, we're going to get to you. Okay. Who's
What's your
next?
favorite book?
What is my favorite book?
Oh, that's the worst question of all. What's your favorite
there's
book?
so many,
You have to
aren't
pick
there?
one?
You know,
How do we do that?
I don't know how to pick one. Because I'm in Belfast, I'm going to say C.S. Lewis. Anything by C.S. Lewis. I really love the Screw Tape Letters on Narnia and things like that. I probably read as a teenager. But there's a lot of adult writers, adult books that I really love today as well. So.
Okay.
Did you ever hesitate about becoming an author?
Ooh, there's a
I
question.
haven't been asked that one before.
Oh, that's good.
No, because I didn't really know what it involved at the time that I started writing. I think once I started writing, I had a determination that I wanted to write that story and try and get it out there however I could. I suppose retrospectively, looking backwards on things, you don't realize how much time it takes to be a writer, that it's not all the glam, and definitely you don't go into it for the money. But you do get a lot of satisfaction in being a writer, and if you like creating something, then it's really fulfilling, and doing stuff like this and hearing people's questions is good.
It's not about all the glam. It's not. No.
No, it's really, I wouldn't be able to cope if it was.
No, that's fair. Who's next? Oh. Don't worry, we'll get to you on this side as well. Don't worry, we're coming. We're coming.
What inspired your characters in the book?
So in this book, that's a really good question. This was my second book, and what inspired this one was I needed to write something that was a bit different to the first book. And the first book was kind of a boy meets girl, Romeo Juliet thing across the so-called divides in Northern Ireland. So this one needed to be a bit different. And I felt that in my first book, the boy character was the stronger character. So as a woman, I wanted to make sure that the second book, it was like a challenge to myself. Let's write some strong female characters, and, you know, why not do two? So there's two of them who take it in turns to write. So that was partly that. Other inspirations were just, I want to tell a different story about Northern Ireland. So although this is often described as like two girls from different backgrounds, we all know that it's a lot more messed up and complicated than that in Northern Ireland, you know. So it's looking at the stories that don't fit the common divide, the common way of telling things in Northern Ireland. In particular, this one's a story of 3 generations of women in Northern Ireland whose stories don't fit what is normally told about here.
Okay, let's go over this side. Let's see what we got over there.
What was your favorite book to write?
Oh, I don't know. I like them both. Am I allowed to say I like them both?
Yeah. Because if you had
Yeah.
picked one, that would seem almost terrible.
Yeah, it's like being asked which of your kids you like better. If you have
Yeah.
more than one kid, you can't,
know.
you know. Like obviously, I'm going to say this one now because it's in the competition and because it's more recent, you know. But yeah, that's a difficult question.
Okay. Further along, same row.
What kept you going when writing your books?
I enjoyed it. So with the first one, I just found that writing was good company. That sounds weird, but I mean, I was in the house in the evenings, and I don't think you would keep writing if you didn't enjoy it. You know, you get to make up stuff. You get to have pretend voices in your head and actually play about with how they sound, and you get to learn that if it's kind of something's not happening, you just make bad stuff happen to the characters, and they all go and they fight back. So yeah, I think what keeps you going is it's got to be fun. And then after that, once you've kind of written the story, but it needs a bit of work, you've got to have determination that you didn't want to waste your time, and that a bit of self-belief that this is good enough to be out there, that you want somebody to read it and have their own opinions on it. And underneath all of my writing, what keeps me going forward is I want to make people think. Whether those are young people or adults, I want to put stories out there that will make people think. Also, they can laugh and cry and smile and everything else, but if I make you think, then I'm happy.
Was there ever a point when you were writing either of the books where you thought, no, this is too hard?
Writing during lockdown, I don't know what Olivia found with working through stuff during lockdown, but I find lockdown killed creative process and fired so much other stuff that at times it was, I don't know how I got to actually finish this book during lockdown. It was a slight miracle. So
I think one author I spoke to was like, no, I'm writing away, I'm fine, everything's really good. And everybody else, it just stopped for them. I think it's astonishing that there are books coming out now that were written throughout the course of that.
I don't think I would have written this unless I had a deadline that I had to deliver it by. It just wouldn't have happened.
Okay.
How did you feel when you were announced to be in the shortlisting?
Really brilliant. And you know the worst thing, that they wouldn't let us tell anybody. So we had to keep it secret, even from our own mums, like, you know. So yeah, it was brilliant. And particularly because this is in Ireland and I'm from Ireland, and it's brilliant.
Did you write it did you write your books on a page for your first draft and then type it for your final draft?
What a great question.
Yeah, that's a really brilliant technical one. So normally I will write my books on a laptop, sitting in a really tatty armchair. But if I'm out, sometimes when you're out doing something different, like going for a long walk or something like that, the creative stuff starts happening in your head. So I will always have a little notebook in my handbag, and I also use the notes bit in my phone quite a lot, just to write down the little bits so I don't forget them. And then when I get home and I have time, then I'll put that into my laptop and carry on writing.
Okay, we're going to take probably another maybe 2 or 3, because there's a whole bunch of hands.
There's at least another 6 or 7 hands up there.
Wow.
What is your favourite part about being an author?
My favourite part is when I get the voice of a character nailed. So what I mean by that is when I read Tara, you can kind of almost hear her, like she's not me, she is a character. And when you work out how you want your character to sound, I love that, because then it makes it easy to write.
Okay.
What do you think it takes to be an author?
It takes you to want to write. It takes you to be creative and have loads of mad ideas, and to know that actually sitting down to write, no matter what age you are, the act of sitting down, trying to write something, making it up, that is not wasted time. Have a go at it, and if you enjoy it, just keep doing it and keep reading and keep writing so that you learn as you go along.
Yeah, 2 more is fine. You are in charge. You make the decisions.
Are any of your storylines personal to you?
That's a good question. So it's back to the thing of you do write what you know. So my books are entirely made up. They are fiction completely, but I do use life experiences. So some of those might be difficult things I've gone through in my life, might be some of the heavier things that the characters face, but it can be really simple things like, you know, so these girls are from Derry and Armagh. Why did I do that? Well, I live in Derry and I'm from Armagh, so I know the places. They were also the only places I could find a toilet during lockdown. And so to actually go to places and write, you know, these things were important. But For example, Faith is a really good singer. And as we have mentioned and we're brushing onto the carpet, I used to do singer-songwriting stuff. So you milk a bit of that and you put it in. Tara is a really good runner. I am not a really good runner, but I did make myself do a couch to 5K just to get the sense of what is this about, so I could write something with a wee bit of knowledge. So yeah, there's bits of me in these, but there's bits that are totally made up.
You again, you're in charge. You make decisions.
If would you like to try any other genres, and if there would be, what would you choose? And also, what would you recommend to new readers for new genres? What ones they would pick?
Ooh. I did think once that the second book I would write might be like a sci-fi kind of one, an environmental type thing set in the future. I'm a big fan of dystopian stuff, you know, like Hunger Games, things like that. I really enjoy those YA books. Kind of when you're an author, the business side of it, if you like, is they like you to keep writing more or less the same kind of things because you build up readers that like what you write. But I might at some point shift and write an adult novel because my novels are sort of definitely teens, but they're also kind of crossovers. A lot of adults would read these as well. And I might at some stage make a shift in how I write and do that. But for the moment, I really like writing for teenagers, so I'll probably stick at it. The second part was about what I would recommend. I don't know, what would you recommend? I'm going to throw that back to you.
I'm 8,000 years old is the problem. So when I was a kid and when I was growing up, YA didn't exist. There were no YA books. So you read kids' books, and then you had to jump into, you know, some form of adult fiction. I started with science fiction. So I started with the library at the back of my classroom when I was about 9, 10 years old. We had a little library at the back of the classroom, and I started by reading Arthur C. Clarke short stories, and I started reading science fiction. And I'm still reading science fiction now, and I'm 50 this year. So that was where I started. That was my jump between.
Interesting. Mine was, I started reading my dad's books, and they were Wilbur Smith, which are all set in Africa, and they're all totally made up, but they're all set on like the history of Africa. And I think that was the first time I realized you could have an entirely made up story set on top of real stuff in communities. And that is actually what I found myself doing then as a writer, which I didn't process that and think about that until much time afterwards.
It is the most brilliant thing today, though, that obviously if anybody in this room wants to read 50 books over this year, they can, and they will all be fantastic books. One more. Do we have one more? We have one more.
An adult reader. I'm Italian, and I like giving books for presents to friends. And I was wondering if your novel would be understood by children, for example, in a different country, even if they were reading it in English as content, because it's set in Northern Ireland.
Okay.
Thank you.
This I'm going to do a glam thing, even though I said writing isn't glam. For the first time next week, I'm booked to go to Switzerland, where they are using my first novel, Guard Your Heart, to teach sixth form students about Northern Ireland through their English language classes. So I think if their English is advanced enough, you know, then yes, it's an accessible way into understanding something about Northern Ireland. There is a bit of sort of colloquial language. The way we talk now is very much included in my books, but having had an English-based publisher, it's very much made to, although there's that flavour of it, it's still accessible by readers wherever they are in the world, hopefully.
And Google exists, so, you know, you come across something you don't know, you can do that. One more. You're being incredibly generous today. One more.
What are your most interesting books?
My most interesting books to read, I really like, well, there's one here by Maggie O'Farrell. I really liked Hamnet that she wrote. I like, there's a writer called Donald Ryan. I really like his books. But I'll also read young adult novels to see what's out there. So Angie Thomas, who wrote The Hate You Give, things like that. You know, I read a lot of wide, diverse stuff.
And that's a great place to finish.
Yep.
That is where we finish. Can I ask you before we do? Oh, you were just about to get started. It's fine. We're about to do it. Can you please put your hands together for Sue Diven? Well done. Woo. And thanks a million for joining us today. If you'd like to find out more about the winning and the shortlisted books, you can go to childrensbooksireland.ie. That's the website. Thanks to the Crescent Arts Centre, to the Arts Council of Northern Ireland, the Arts Council, and the headline sponsors KPMG. And one more time, give yourselves a round of applause and thanks for coming today. Cheers. Thank you. And that's that.